All right. Good morning and welcome back to another edition of the Regina Rosa Celeste Show. And I'm so happy because today I get to connect with one of my amazing dear friends, Miss Laura Goldstein. And I'm so happy because Laura and I met, when was it? About, I would say almost 2 or 3 years ago, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It was,
absolutely.
yeah, I remember the table that we met at. It was a women's event and it was a weekend event in Cypress Creek, Florida. And you were still living here in the area at the time. You were living in Miami Beach, right?
Yeah, yeah, I was still there. Yeah, I remember that too, and it's interesting because, um, like, I've seen you kind of morph into what you're doing today, and it's been such a fabulous journey to witness and watch. So, yeah, it's been several years.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And it's funny because when you reached out to me last week, I was at actually this weekend, right? No, it was, I think Thursday or Friday. And I was at a speaking event and it was all about, it's called the Empowered Speaker, and it's all about speaking your story. And I remember the day that we met and what I was going through. And you were part of my shift. There was a couple people that showed up in my life at that time. And I could tell like you have this amazing gift and ability to see through people. And I remember sitting at the table and was like, oh my God, she can totally feel what I'm going through. And I couldn't say it at the time because, of course, I had to be, Miss, like we all do, right? We try to put on these masks of we're okay and life is wonderful. And, meanwhile, like life could be a complete disaster. And not saying that that's always the case, but that was the case at that moment. I was going through a lot and it just was not a great time in my awareness back then. And so I remember meeting you and you talking about your journey and come a lot with your health and your career. And as I was getting ready for today, I went online and looked up a little bit, and there's so much to your story, which is so cool. And so I want to share with people a little bit about all the things you've overcome and whatever feels good to talk about. And then also how that relates to the work you do, which is a lot, in a lot of ways, the work that we get to do together. And yeah, so share with me, with us, a little bit about your journey and what you're up to these days, because you
Oh,
do some pretty
good.
amazing stuff.
Yeah, it's like when I started my journey, I wasn't as spiritually conscious as I am today by all means. I mean, I had some concept of, what it was like to have a positive mindset because I was doing traditional therapy at the time. And my journey to being where I am today really started with a quest to heal my physical body. I was working in a remote Eskimo village in Alaska because I was getting burned out uh, through like the traditional community therapy. There's a long story behind that, but my ex-husband and I ended up working out there. And when you're in a remote place with like no entertainment, no restaurants to go to. You have a lot of quiet time. And it was within that quiet space that I started to reflect on, things that weren't going so well for me. I'm like, my health is kind of in the crapper. And why am I experiencing this? And why am I taking this medication? And there's got to be a better way. And so as I was in this place of nothing else to do but a whole lot of soul searching besides going to work, um, I started to heal my body, but then I realized I had to heal a lot of emotions behind what was manifesting in my body. And then that led me to greater spiritual awareness and started to question, who am I and what is my greater purpose here, and what are my gifts, and how can I really create a life that is fulfilling and that I love. So it was kind of like this wonky journey, and out there in Bush, Alaska. I mean, like a lot of wacky things happen. It's like you can't make it up. You learn the art of patience, you earn the art of adapting to environmental circumstances. And then it just all kind of led me to what I'm doing today. Helping people find that same sense of purpose, gifts, strengths, and finding that inner peace, which is why I resonate so much with your message, because I'm a true believer that in order to exude and emulate peace and create peace in the world, it needs to start from the inside,
Mhm.
because what is on our inside is what we project on the outside. So if we're projecting confusion and chaos and unfulfillment, we're not doing ourselves or the world a service.
So true. And, I'll be the first to say, I'm not always peaceful. Like those that are closest to me, they have seen me, even in the last couple days, like parts of me raging,
Mm.
right? Raging from inside out. And what I think is so awesome about, why I feel so connected with you, and I always have, is because you're the real deal. Like you never said that it's perfect all the time, and you and I, we haven't had like these super long conversations of, of our journeys, but it's like when someone's just showing up with full authenticity and they're just showing up, and it's almost like, we were talking before we started about the egg behind you, right? And how there's this essence that's consistent about you. And I like that because that was the thing that drew me to you when we first met. And it's so funny because, we work together in my other world, right, which is real estate, and not specifically directly, but it was such an honor for me when you called me and you said, "Hey, I need some help with this." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing," And little did you know, I had a lot that I was dealing with back then. So I turned it over to some other team members because I knew that that was going to be the best bet. And I'm so happy, that worked out and everything. And along that journey, yes, I grew and I started what I now have, which is the Internal Peace Renegades Revolution. And it is this concept that you're talking about, which is having that internal peace inside of us. And that's not always to say that life doesn't happen, right? Like life is going to bring up situations, life is going to bring up opportunities, as I like to call them, to practice that which we want to teach and be. And, like I see you when we're out, and you still are very mindful about what you eat and how you take care of your health. And that's, I'm sure, right, you could probably say too, it's not always easy. Like there's moments where you probably just want to, and even with your work, right, in the psychotherapy work that you do, like helping people to understand that it is a process. It's onion peeling. It's not like, oh, I got this one aspect of my life and now everything is crystal and rosy. It's like brushing your teeth, right? If you don't do it one day, or if you did it one day, it doesn't mean you don't have to do it the next day.
Yeah, and I think, for me, I walk the walk. I don't want to guide and support people from a place of I've never done this, but now I've learned it by reading a book, and I'm going to teach you. And we are spiritual beings, but we're here in human experience, which means we screw up, and we screw up a lot, and that's part of the learning process. I'm very careful about what I eat and my spiritual practices, and they're non-negotiable. But I do have moments like one Christmas when I decided that I was cured and I was going to have pizza. And I have a dairy allergy, by the way, so you can imagine what kind of train wreck that was. And I was like, oh, okay, well, note to self, don't need to do that. And I'll still catch myself going down like this rabbit hole of, oh, I need to improve myself. I need to get better at this. And pretty soon I'm like, monkeys, squirrel brain, getting caught up in the bright, shiny object syndrome. And I'm like, wait, what am I doing? So we're all human and we all experience these things. But what's important is that when you know yourself and you understand yourself, you can actually catch yourself when you are making incongruent actions or making choices that don't really feel good within. You can catch them and say, oh, okay, yeah, I've been there, done that, or I don't really want to go here. And you can just make the needed shifts. It's going to happen. So you might as well anticipate it and expect it, but also know how to navigate it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, one of the biggest myths is when we feel like we're supposed to be perfect all the time and we feel like we're not going to make mistakes, like what you said about being human, right? Like I made a post about that yesterday, about living in this state of, it's not going to be perfect all the time. We are human. I believe we're spiritual beings in a human body, right? Living a human experience. And we are doing the best we can. And it's asking ourselves, like, what is the self-talk? Is it negative self-talk, or is it positive? Is it, being kind and considerate to ourselves like we are to others? Like, I wouldn't say to you, hey, that dress is horrible or ugly. I would say, hey, this dress looks really nice. Do you want to try this one instead? Like, it's almost like an art form, right? And I know you would do the same thing for me. Like, hey, that color doesn't look right on you.
Mm-hmm.
Try this one. And it's also, I think it's, at the end of the day, it's even more than that. It's having those really, those of us, and this is going to be funny as I say it, but I know you get it, and hopefully the people that are watching. And I think this is, for me, this is what being an internal peace renegade really means, is knowing that when we go through these journeys of what I call the dark night of the soul, right? Whether it's, a healing of a food addiction, or something serious, on a emotional level, like what you were talking about. Yes, it's physical, but it's really 99% of it is emotional, right? And so when we go into those dark shadows of ourselves, and we get to know those parts of ourselves that maybe we don't want to see, right? That's where the blessing is. That's where the juiciness is. Because when you can get through that tunnel of darkness, you get to the other side, and then your areas of I don't even want to say weakness, but then okay, I'm looking at this pizza. Should I eat this pizza or not? Right? And then you make a conscious choice. Like this morning, I started with cake. Like, I started my day with cake. And there was a part of me that was like, are you sure you want to do this? And I thought, you know what? As long as I don't feel guilt, and as long as I'm okay with it. And it's amazing what happens, because in those moments when we make choices from consciousness versus choices from those areas in ourselves, those emotional gaps, or those emotional, I call them valleys, that's the difference. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people really get to come from joy, love, and peace in every aspect of their life, whether it's in love, whether it's in career, whether it's in health. It's like the conscious awareness that you were just talking about, of, you didn't use these words necessarily, but coming from a place of, is this in my highest and best?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then you just choose, like, if you want to have, a cocktail, or let's say you're at a party and, everybody's having Doritos. It doesn't mean you're not going to do it. It just means you do it with a different sense of balance for yourself. And balance is different for different people. And I think, one of the things that I love about psychotherapy is that it really gets into a person's subconscious or unconscious, right? Which is so important, because we think we know what we know, but there's a whole iceberg underneath. And, like you were talking about the spiritual practices, that quiet time is so important, doing the meditation. Like, I notice myself when I don't do even just 5 minutes of meditation, I'm a different human, like, I can tell when I don't exercise, when I don't take care of my health. And it's really, it's not just important, it's critical.
Yeah. I think sometimes people too tend to overcomplicate finding that sense of peace and wellness. I believe like the biggest liberation and freedom that we can experience is giving ourselves permission to just be us. I mean, like yourself, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I know that there's a lot of spiritual messages out there about, oh, you just need to, step beyond the ego and wait to be transformed back into spirit. But I'm like, you know what? We're here for a reason. We're here as soulful beings to experience different things and to learn and grow. And how do we grow if we aren't willing to really, take a look at to what we're feeling and what we're experiencing? And that's where that subconscious stuff comes in. It's like, what is driving this behavior? What is under that? Let me be curious and take a look at it. Okay, so it might not be pretty, but that's okay, because what can I learn from it? How can I validate who I am, based on some of these experiences that I've had? What can I do differently next time? And when we understand who we are and give ourselves permission to act on that and to be okay with some of the things that others may perceive as wrong or broken or not proper or whatever it is, we can truly choose what is in or of value to us, what is in our highest good, our own well-being, because we're not distracted by what other people think or their opinions or their advice. It's really, this is what works for me, and this is what I'm going to do. And it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks. Is this going to bring you joy? Is this going to bring you peace? Is it in your highest good? Is it, in your health and well-being? It doesn't matter what others, want from you or expect from you.
Yeah, and I love that you said that. And for anybody who's watching, please feel free to leave a comment, because said, Laura, for me, that's like the holy grail, right? Is when a person knows themselves and knows their connection is so, I'm gonna say tight or strong, right? With the spirit, the universe, all that good stuff. It's a sense of value, and it's a sense of self-worth that cannot be shaken, that can be disturbed by someone else's opinion of them. And what's so beautiful about that is we each get the same amount of time in our day, right? There's 24 hours in a day. I don't know how many seconds it is, but someone I'm sure knows the math. Type it in the chat, let us know. But the formula for success and the formula for happiness, right? Each person has their own definition, right? If you look in the dictionary, you see one word that defines it, but in reality, everybody has their own. And like Anya just wrote, yes, unto yourself be true, which is, I think, so true. And Anya's a great example of that. Like, she's one of our our sisters, right, from WPN and our community. And so grateful she's here. And I love the idea, and not just the idea, but the way that we each get to be, I think, invited into our true, not to be esoteric or whatever, but the truth is like, I think we're all here to be reminded how amazing we are, and not from an egoic place, but from I have a right to be here.
Mm-hmm.
You have a right to, we all have a right, not just a right, but a responsibility as well. And like, when I have those moments where I doubt myself, or I don't feel whatever, I feel icky or yucky, it's usually because I'm not honoring something that I know to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm listening or seeing someone else telling me, or trying to impose their view on me, when in reality their judgment is coming from their own filter of their own limitations. And I feel like, especially right now in this time of history, it's so important to each have certainty in our own ways of being and our own compass. And again, not from ego, but from love, and from, is this, because when I feel good about myself, and I know this, I'm almost convinced that this is 100% true. I'm very confident about this statement. When one person feels good about themselves, they don't have space to harm other people, because they don't even think like that. It's like the vibration is so high, the vibration is so pure, that they wouldn't cause harm unto another person nor themselves.
Yeah, when you're connected with spirit, I know, like, when I'm connected, and I'm very conscious about remaining that way most of the time. And in order to do the intuitive work I do with people, I have to have like some kind of connection going on. If I'm shut off, it just doesn't happen. But I know that when I'm in that space, I feel like in my heart, just joy and peace and non-judgment. And when I am coming from that space, and when I take the time every day to quiet my mind and do my meditation rituals, you're right. There is no room for, oh, let me go out and judge that person. What are you doing? And let me, gossip and snippet about this, or talk about how I hate that. There's no room for that, because you're just like, I'm filled with joy right now. What can I do with this? How can I go create, make a difference, share something, connect with somebody? It's a whole different way of operating. I guess, like the high vibration, which I think some people are like, I don't even know what that means. What does that mean, high vibration?
That's like it. Yeah.
I think that's, what it is. It's just, it's operating from a different level of awareness and consciousness.
Yeah, with that same token, I will add this, which I think is also very important, which is in those moments where we do need to express, right? Because the reality is we're all going through stuff, and sometimes it's important to vent or to let it out. And I think it is really important to have people that we trust, like coaches, mentors, friends, that we can share those areas of the darkness, right? And those areas aren't totally fulfilled, because those are still there, right?
Mhm.
And that's where the opportunity is to transform. Like full disclosure, this past week, I had a couple things show up, and it's Wednesday. I guess it was on Monday. Some things that showed up in my world, and I thought, wow, I get to work on this. And it was so cool because one of my friends, he said to me, you're still getting triggered by this. And I said, yeah, you know what? Thank you. Apparently I am. I said, and the great news is that I don't have to deal with it in the way that I did the last time. So I get to do it different this time. And I was so grateful because I had people that I could talk to without them, judging me, right? Because I didn't want to gossip or um, judge other people, right? Nor myself. Because at the end of the day, if you're processing something and you're going through a journey, there's going to be both. There's going to be the blessings, there's going to be the contrast, right? And so I think it's super important to be surrounded with love and community, and having people in our lives that can support us to help us differentiate, well, what is gossip versus I really need to get this off my chest. And
Yeah.
that's where, go ahead.
Yeah, and I was going to say, or what is me in terms of identification, or what is something that I just experienced that I need to now set free or learn how to navigate the emotions around that. Because it's not just, it's like releasing judgment of self too.
Hmm. And that's where the emotional intelligence piece comes in, and I think it's so important. It's so brilliant, emotional intelligence, because it's like without that we don't grow, right? There's IQ, which is like the smarts and the technical kind of, I call it like the book smart, and then there's the EQ, which is living in the world with maturity and an emotional balance, right? So knowing, like you said, well, okay, something happens, how do I deal with this, right? Am I going to lose myself completely, or can I still experience some yuckiness and still move through it with grace and ease? And that's what I think, you and I, we get to do this work in the world. And I think it's so cool because that's what people really need, right? The world needs that right now because there is so much upheaval. And I believe that's like the holy grail. I believe that that's the key to success and to peace and love and joy, is having that internal peace where you might get rocked, but you don't fall permanently down.
Yeah. If you can learn to embrace the yuckiness, or whatever it is, and say, okay, this is showing up and this is teaching me something. What is it? What is it that I am meant to understand here? You start to see those experiences or negative emotions or disturbances as lessons to be learned, almost as guides. I do believe, we have light and we have shadow, and I think sometimes we fear the shadow sides of ourselves, but those guides can actually be very important as well. They have an important message for us. And when we can embrace that and not be afraid of it, because when we're afraid, we try to suppress or pretend it's not there. When we do that, we're not inducing change. I mean, if you think just about like the struggles we're experiencing now with, racism and cultural conflicts, if we just kind of pretended and suppressed, oh, this will just blow over, without really saying, what is the message there? What is there for us to learn as a group, as a society, without doing that, we would never see any change. We would never see any forward progress. So, I believe that we can embrace the struggles and the yuckiness,
Mhm.
to see what we can get from that and what we need to know.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I feel for those that are watching and those that watch the replay later, because what you just shared, which is, I truly believe nothing happens by accident, and I think that it is a graceful reminder for us that anything that continues to show up is showing up as a message. Hey, I'm still here. Right? When you get that ache in your neck, or you wake up with a side pain, or somebody says something to you and it bothers you, it's an opportunity to rise above it. And that's the blessing. Like, even the racism conversation, it's like, are we just going to pretend like it's not happening,
Right.
or are we going to do something about it? And I love the discussions that are showing up. Like, yeah, people are angry, people are enraged, and good, let's get that out, and let's get it out in a way that's efficient and that's responsible. And that's where I feel community is so important. And that's where, like, I'm doing my best to create a community and a tribe, and as well as be part of tribes and conversations that are conscious and that are like, hey, you want to get your aggression out? Great. Buy yourself don't people.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I also understand that there's going to be people that are not as aware, and they're going to do what they do. And the opportunity is for us to create conscious containers and loving containers where people can vent and support each other and do this, right, which is love on each other, as I call it, and create conscious containers for communication. And yeah, and I love these conversations. They're so rich. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I so appreciate you, because the way you show up, you're so gentle and you're so loving. And I feel very honored to be in this sisterhood and this time together. And it was so nice to get your message the other day, because it was so on point, and it's so nice when we get to meet people and be living in life with people that we don't need to talk to every day, but we just know them. We know their heart, we know their soul. And
It's
I
funny,
feel
it's actually spirit that kind of guides me to do things. And I was just sitting there and I just heard, you need to reach out to Regina. And I'm like, okay, done.
yeah, I love it, and I'm so glad you did. And we'll wrap up here. And I think Bonnie's quote, or Bonnie's message, is so perfect. It says, this time period is bringing out areas that are becoming more aware and possibly bringing us closer to open discussions. And I couldn't agree more, Bonnie. I think right now we have such a beautiful invitation and opportunity to grow as a society, and us to be able to, in a mature way, transform those conversations, transform those emotions from fear. Because really, I personally believe there's only two emotions: there's love and there's fear. And, I posted something yesterday, and Laura, I would love to get your input on it if you haven't seen it already. And it was, this thing happened, and it's all good, everything's fine, so to speak. And it was beautiful because it got me talking, right? It got me triggered, and I started looking into the solution for myself, which was to have peace, create peace around the whole situation. And I saw something which was so beautiful that reminded me, fear is, I was told, right, for many years I've been going with this idea that false evidence appearing real, which I still love. And then the other side of it is, um I have to look it up, but it's, if anyone has that post, let me see. It's so interesting, because the words, it's like really beautiful.
Is that the
Um,
one? It looked like there was a picture of Marie Forleo next to it.
yes,
Was that
exactly. And it's,
the one? Okay.
yeah. Look, I'm gonna, because I would love to, and with, I think it's really powerful. Let me pull it up here. It's really about, here we go. Face everything and rise.
I haven't heard that one. I haven't heard that one yet. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah, and that was actually, I got it off of one of her quotes, and it was so cool because I love that about Marie Forleo. Like, she's really raw, And she's really like, she doesn't hide who she is. She doesn't pretend to be something she's not. Like, she's obviously done very well for herself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because she doesn't, like, she's willing to go through the fire, and there's a lot of people like that, I think, in our collective worlds. And those are, to me, those are real heroes, because a hero is someone that's afraid and does it anyway.
Right.
And so to me, like, that was a really cool shift. It was like, okay, how can I transform, again, even the word fear, and so, like, yeah, I'm full of fear, in the sense that, I can still have stuff, I can go through stuff, I can face everything, and I can rise above it. And so I love having that opportunity.
I know that we have to wrap up here, but just something that's really helped me with fear, especially when being um, a worker. I don't know that I refer to myself as like a light worker, but like a teacher of sorts. Is that I realize that if I hold myself as like, oh, I'm this expert that's supposed to be, doing healing work or helping somebody, there's a lot of pressure in that and a lot of fear comes from that. But when you see yourself as, you know what, I am just here as a contributor, that there are a lot of us who are spreading the message and here's my take on it and I'm just contributing, it takes a lot of that pressure off and a lot of, that fear kind of dissipates because you're not like putting yourself in a position of, oh, I have to be a certain way and look a certain way. And I think that, it kind of helps you step into your authenticity and how you really want to show up in the world. So that was just something that kind of helped me with the whole, fear thing.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100%. It's about stepping into our our gifts and our authentic selves. And nobody said that, somebody who's courageous and, like firefighters, they go into fire. That doesn't mean they don't have fear. They
Right.
still have fear, but they do it anyway. And to me, that's like such a great anchor is, who are some of the people that I see rising up in despite what's going on, and so yeah, I know you and I, we could go on for days because we have a lot in common. And I'm actually really excited when you come back next, because I think, I saw that you're doing the back and forth. So once you get back on the next plane, hopefully I'll get to see you when you come to visit.
Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you so much, Laura, for being with me today. And I'm excited. And if anyone has any questions for Laura, please feel free to reach out to her. Where can they reach you if they're looking for some
Um,
guidance?
they can go to my website. It's soul, SOUL, wisdom lore, LORE.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have an awesome day. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Regina.
Thanks, Laura. You're welcome. Bye.